Alright, welcome everybody. This is the introduction to the true crime class that you should have signed up for. Hopefully that's why you're here. Kind of the class before the class. I just wanted to give you a brief introduction on what you'd be in for with this program and to define some keywords and phrases so that once we start the class we're not spending our hour just defining things and things like that. First of all, before the class I want to make sure everybody goes to the resource site and just kind of looks over it and becomes familiar. I don't expect anybody to memorize anything or, listen to 100 podcast links or anything like that, but just kind of knowing what's out there that might be helpful. So let's get started. And just a note about the resource site, I'm going to put that link in the show notes so you guys can just go to it and find it there instead of having to dig through your email. Alright, so first of all, this is a very amateur class, so if you came here expecting, some deep scholarly thoughts or to be able to further your journalistic career, this is not the place for you. This is for people like me that are just interested in true crime and want to learn more about it and maybe want to be little amateur armchair detectives on your own. The class is going to be, the in-person class is going to be us discussing one heavy hitter case, so somebody who's pretty famous and that you may have already heard of, and then one North Carolina case who you may have also already heard of, but just bring it a little bit closer to home. Another thing that I want to make sure everybody is aware of is that we are going to be talking about murder. So this is a trigger warning. There will be subject matter in the class and possibly in this video that isn't very comfortable and might not be very pretty. And a trigger warning inside of a trigger warning, if you decide to do some research on your own, be very careful with what you click on and look at. Specifically searching for things like crime scene photos can pull up some very gruesome and disturbing images. So if you're not into that or not ready for that, don't search for that. Alright, so we're going to go over some vocabulary. First of all, serial killer. Everybody thinks they know what a serial killer is, but the actual definition is 3 or more kills is a serial killer. And it has to be within a certain amount of time. So like somebody hits 3 people with their car, that's not a serial killer, but if they killed 3 people over the course of 5 years, that would be a serial killer. So that's the first one. The second one is product and process killer. So and just a warning, this is when it gets a slight bit gross. A process killer is somebody like Mr. Ted Bundy, who enjoys the game, the finding and the killing and the murder, and the actual process of what they're doing. A product killer is somebody like Jeffrey Dahmer, who doesn't actually enjoy the killing, but wants the product, so wants the body or things like that. Again, not very pretty, but again, it's murder, so it's not the prettiest subject. Mass killer, most people know what that is. That is what we hear about more often nowadays. Somebody that goes in to, say, a movie theater or something like that and does a mass shooting. I tend not to focus on those too much. There's one in particular. That being said, I will recommend a book at the end if you are interested in things like that. That is more helpful, but I think since it does hit close to home for a lot of us, it's kind of a tough subject to delve into right now. Crime of passion, that is when somebody is in the middle of a fight or somebody's made somebody mad and they just do it in the moment. So it's not necessarily a planned out murder. It's one that just kind of happens because you're mad and you didn't mean to do it. And the last term that we're going to discuss is berserker mode. So berserker mode is a time period in every serial killer's history where they kind of, they escalate a lot. So, if somebody, say they have like 1 kill and then they wait a year and they have another kill and then it's like once a month after that, that might be their normal pace. But typically you'll hit one time period where it might be like 5 kills in a night or 3 kills in a night, and that's more their berserker mode. That tends to be where they start to get sloppy, and usually that's where it leads to arrests and clues and all the things like that. So since I'm going to end this video here, I wanted to leave you guys with a few more recommendations. You have all sorts on the resource site, but I figured just a few more might be helpful because who doesn't love a good book to read at the library? My first recommendation is Deviant by Harold Schechter, and this one in particular is fairly gruesome, so if you like gruesome type stuff, this might be for you. It's about serial killer Ed Gein, and he is very much a product killer, so just know that before you dive in. Book number 2 is actually not about murder. It is about sociopathy. So you're gonna, in your study of true crime and in your research, you are going to come across psychopath and sociopath a lot. There are several of them out there that are, serial killers, but more often than not, everyone diagnoses everyone as that. But this particular book is actually by a sociopath. She's chosen to remain mostly anonymous. It's Confessions of a Sociopath by Emmy Thomas. But she's an actual sociopath that just kind of explains her thought process and where she's coming from. It's a very interesting read. And last, this is a thick book, but it's a very good one, and I alluded to it slightly before. If you aren't interested in, mass shooters or things like that, this is one of the most infamous. This is Columbine, and it is by Dave Cullen, and it is a fantastic book. If you're like me and you were, in high school through this time period, or you just remember it a lot, this is a great book for you. Alright, so I'm going to leave you guys with that. There is a Facebook prompt. This will also be in the show notes, but I want you guys to go in and make a comment about something you learned during this video or what led you to true crime, and also comment on 2 of your classmates' comments as well, and then maybe we'll be comfortable with each other enough to chat about this very exciting topic. So if you have any questions, feel free to email me, and I look forward to seeing you in class. Thanks. Bye.